Welcome back. And here we are wrapping up at chapter 8 with the elements of formal reports and visual aids. So, um, formal reports have many things to be aware of. So, in the last video, I talked about memos and letter reports real briefly, real quick. Those are routine, everyday kind of reports. The formal report is the bigger deal. It's the annual report. It's a full business proposal. It's the big stuff. So 3 main things to be aware of. First, there's a front matter. You'll have a title page. It'll be designed, some sort of logo, contact information. It should look beautiful. It should not say, this is the title page. Gross. Don't do that. And then the transmittal document, that's business jargon for the letter that says, this report was written for you. Sometimes we just paperclip that to the top. Again, the transparency report that went to the president on behalf of this blue ribbon task force on transparency. I just paperclipped a nice printed on letterhead thick stock paper letter to the president that says, please accept this report on behalf of this committee and the work and the research that we've done over the past year and a half. So that's the transmittal document. It could be included inside the report. It could be pinned to the top. You're definitely going to need a table of contents. Usually there's data, so a list of illustrations would say these are some of the designs, some of the charts, and then an executive summary. Again, the executive summary is about 1/10 of the report and should speak to all sections. So what sections? That's the proper part of the report, the body of it. There's an introduction. There's going to be data, content, details, explanations. That all goes in the body. Then you're going to summarize and give some conclusions based on the data that you've gathered, the market testing you've done, and then you're going to end with recommendations. So when I write an executive summary, I create a paragraph. It's always about 5 paragraphs. There's an intro paragraph. There's one paragraph that summarizes key ideas from the body. There's the summary. Paragraph that pulls it all together, gets me to some conclusions, gets me to recommendations. If it's a really short report, those might be the 5 sentences of the executive summary. So that's just something to keep in mind. And then if you have any additional content, maybe some designs, maybe some references that you've used, some prototypes. If in the case of the transparency report, we conducted interviews with board members and executive leaders across campus, and then we also conducted a survey with students, staff, and faculty. So our appendix for that document was huge. It had data from the interviews and from the survey in its raw form, just as an appendix. Okay, so visual aids. And I would spend a whole day in class talking about visual aids. Again, if you haven't picked it up by now, I love design. I think design is a critical part of communication that often gets overlooked. So when we talk about visual aids, they really need to be purposeful. There's a lot to say here, and I'm going to share some ideas from another book too. First things first, you need to pick the most appropriate design for the message. Visual aids should add value, and they should not be distracting, but they should be chosen to suit the data that you're trying to relay or portray to your audience. Also, when you use them, when you include them, you should refer to them in the text. So general rule of thumb, when you write a report and then you're going to include a table or a chart about the data, introduce it first and then say, please see table 1. And put that chart as close as possible to the visual, to the reference in the text, in the paragraph. Typical rule of thumb is to put charts at the top or bottom of the page. Unless you're a really great designer, I wouldn't try to insert them in the middle or on the side or wrap the text around them. So, and feel free to make them as large as you can. There's no reason to insert a super small graph that the text can barely be read. I mean, space is not a premium anymore because everything's digital, so make it big. And keep it simple. As with everything, visuals are one of the things that people really mess up by overcomplicating. The more simple, the better. You want your audience member to be able to look at it quickly and see what's going on. So don't write out everything. Do that in the paragraphs leading up to it. Use abbreviations, use symbols, create a legend if that's helpful, but you should always strive to keep it simple. One of my favorite books, and this woman, Cole, lives in Milwaukee. She's a mathematician turned business consultant, and she has this great book called Storytelling with Data. I actually use it in my research methods class. One, it's super easy to read and super fun, and it's good to support authors in the Midwest. And I don't know, that's my general philosophy. But the key insights, I'm going to spare you having to read the book and give you the Cliff Notes version. First, she says, what's the story? Like, you're trying to pitch your business or make a case for some recommendations. What is that story? Know the story that you need the data to tell going into the effort. And then figure out what data you have and how you're going to be able to explain this type of data. That should lead you to decide what chart to use. And you want to make it, again, the most simple and most efficient. So usually, and just a punchline that I'm going to give away for free, it's usually a bar chart. It's a simple bar chart too, not one of these stacked on an axis blended weird things. The most simple way for people to visualize data is usually in a bar chart. Anyways, we'll get to that in a second. As I said, people, who are these people? Who is your audience? What do they already know? What issues are they bringing to the story? So know your audience. And it's going to vary. If you're presenting to a board of directors, if you're presenting to potential investors, if you're presenting to your peers. So think about what kind of visuals are going to work with your different audiences. And the book talks about some different types of graphics. They even talk about pie charts. I'm just going to say this right now on record. It is literally being recorded. Never use a pie chart. They're useless. The book says that they're visually stunning. That is not true, as psychological research shows that people have a very hard time differentiating the size of the wedges in a bar chart. So in a pie chart. So unless you're trying to say that 75% of the population believes this, that 75, looks like a Pac-Man face and it's a big clear indicator in the pie chart. Otherwise, pie charts are overly simplistic and useless. And they only are relevant if you are explicitly talking about something that has a finite 100% sum. So don't use them. Use a table. Tables are easy. This is a table from our sustainability plan. Shows all the different categories that we audited the university on, shows how many points we earned, and shows how many points possible. We couldn't really put that in a pie chart. It's too many factors, and the wedges would be too small and indistinguishable from each other. So it makes for a great table when you have a lot of data to arrange concisely. This is also a graph from our former sustainability report. What's cool about this graph is in the late 1990s, you can see that 1 kilowatt hour of renewable energy installed cost about $12. to install. By 2015, it was down close to $2. You know what that rate is today? This is just for fun, renewable energy fund. Less than 15 cents. Less than 15 cents. It is now cheaper to install and use renewable energy than to extract and burn coal for energy. It's wild. So that's a great story. And the line graph can show that change because it's over time. So line graphs, we're seeing a lot of these with the coronavirus because it is changing over time, as in like days. Speaking of coronavirus, here's a bar chart. And what this bar chart shows in the red are Republican leaning voters, and the blue is Democrat leaning voters, and their level of trust or approval ratings, I'm sorry, of different institutionals handling or leadership in response to the coronavirus. So we show, like, generally, regardless of your political party affiliation, most 85% of Americans approve of the way the states are responding to the issue. We see big differences between Republicans and Democrats in terms of the president and vice president, and also in terms of the news media. But along the other lines, this bar chart, which compares categories and is simple, helps to show some differences. All right, so those are different types of graphics. The most important thing is that you choose the visual aid that is going to speak directly to your audience. What is going to help them see the data in a meaningful way? Put yourself in their shoes, pretend you don't know the recommendations that are coming, pretend you don't know the larger story, and imagine what kind of visual could tell that for you. That will always be the punchline to this class, is put yourself in your audience's shoes. Okay, if you've got any questions about this content, feel free to message me or check out chapter 8 in the textbook. And what I want to leave you with is this week's discussion forum challenge. So what we will discuss, if you log on to one of the virtual sessions on Monday or Wednesday at 2 p.m., we can just chat about this. If you log on to chat, come with a clipping from either the Wall Street Journal or Business Week or any company annual report that you find online. You could simply Google image search bar chart or pie chart if you really want to ruffle my feathers. And then what we'll do is a little screen sharing. You can show us the visual you found and talk about why you think they chose to use that type of visual aid, good, bad, ugly. If you don't want to participate in the virtual discussion, you can do this in the discussion forum on Educat, which is written, and you can do that at your own time or pace. So just, again, find an image, clip it, add it to your post, and explain why you think that was either an effective or ineffective type of visual aid. I hope this was helpful, and I look forward to seeing you soon.